The cultural and creative sector has been one of the worst hit by the fallout from the pandemic, and yet the arts industry appears determined to bounce back. Now, it's been forced to adapt in order to survive with the help of technology. Now, many theatres are now offering live stream shows, while others are allowing restricted audience numbers with health screening measures in place. Now, the future of the arts industry looks so uncertain, and Malaysia is no different from the rest of Asia.
It's a far cry from pre-pandemic days. Live performances were limited. The number of seats were reduced by half in compliance with health safety measures. Still, the show must go on. Relieved to be able to go back on stage, 32-year-old Kylie Lim puts her heart and soul into her first performance on stage in 2 years.
Honestly, it has been very difficult. We try to do what we can. Coming back here, we just feel very thankful. Definitely feel very, very excited to come back because now that we are back on stage, can't wait for the next project and so on and so forth.
While Kylie gave online lessons to tie her through the protracted lockdown where all live performances were cancelled, fellow dancer Shafiq Gauss was busy baking. It's been very tough 2 years for dancers like himself, he said, and they don't earn much to begin with. Now he sells cakes online.
Sebelum COVID sebenarnya banyak persembahan di dalam negara dan di luar negara juga. Saya dah pernah pergi paling jauh ke London bila COVID dah datang, lepas tu kita tak boleh nak buat persembahan lagi. So I think I must do something, to survive.
He missed performing tremendously, he said, and that's why he jumped at the opportunity to perform and teach as soon as the country eased restrictions late last year. But jobs were hard to come by, even with the gradual reopening of the economy.
I know of singers, performers that actually gave up and became Grab drivers. Some became cooks. They started cooking because they made money from that. You need to make income. So for 1.5 years, people really struggled. But
to help support the industry during lockdown, the government, through the Cultural Economy Development Agency, known as Cendana, has rolled out a series of initiatives, including bringing traditional cultural performances online.
Many of us in the industry have had to learn to adapt to working in new ways and new formats. So that's how Panggung Rakyat Online came about. But it's also in line with our efforts to ensure continuity in the arts and support sustainability of livelihoods for our traditional communities.
9 episodes were premiered on Cendana digital platform so far. They include traditional cultural performances such as Mak Yong, Zapin, as well as the marriage rituals from the Mahmari indigenous community. Much to their surprise, the virtual performances were able to generate tens of thousands of views from near and afar.
There was a lot more of different audiences that could tune in from different parts of the world even and rewatch it after. So I think feedback from the traditional communities and groups did say they were able to reach to different target audience which they never would have done physically as well. We do intend to continue and ensure this initiative continues as well.
Indeed, the pandemic and subsequent lockdown had forced many from the creative industry to explore new ways to reach out and connect with their audiences.
technology is here to stay. You must make use of it to think, how do you fund the arts through technology? A good example is football, right? 30 years ago, football was watched in a stadium of 60,000 people. Now, 300 million people watch it, and also the 60,000, and they've monetized it. So if it can happen to football, why not theatre? Why not dance? If we master the art of filming it right.
To stimulate interest and revitalize the cultural and creative arts, grants were given to individuals and groups involved in the performing arts industry. Various arts festivals, including workshops, were organized in major cities across Malaysia. I was invited to one that was held recently in Penang to celebrate the unique cultural traditions of Straits-born Chinese known as the Peranakans. Participants must first clear swab tests and wear face masks at all times. Still, the response was tremendous from the local community. It's a trip down memory lane for many Malaysians who've been reminiscing about traditional form of social dancing, like Ronggeng that used to be a way of life back then in the 50s and 60s. And now it's enjoying a revival with the lifting of the lockdown. Now here's the workshop and I'm going to give it a go. But first, you need a handkerchief. The trainer is none other than the head of Nusantara Performing Arts Research Centre.
Ronggeng is not quiet, you know. Ronggeng is very loud. It's happening lah. That's why people love to Ronggeng, because it's a way to let go your stresses. You come in, you enjoy the movement, and you have company. Yeah, so it doesn't make you feel bad if you don't know how to dance. Even you are a lousy dancer, when you do Ronggeng, you're still part of Ronggeng already.
Steps are simple. The rhythms are essentially the same, but the style can be different. In Peranakan Ronggeng, the ladies traditionally flick the handkerchiefs before their partners who lead the dance. The moves are playful and effortless. Organisers hope that more workshops like this can be conducted, including in public schools, to revive the dying art form.
You know, it's high time lah to introduce it back to the community, especially the younger ones. The problem is that the best part of Ronggeng is when you are able to exchange the pantun, the quatrain. So if there is no one interested in that technique of exchange, it's not going to survive.
Fortunately, these ladies are bent on practicing Ronggeng and plan on influencing their children to do the same at family and social gatherings.
I found it fun. I really enjoyed myself. And it was so easy to pick up the steps.
Well, it's very nostalgic because I come from a Baba Nyonya family, and so back in those days when I was a little girl, there'll be Ronggeng at weddings and Chinese New Year and Chap Gome. So it's like, going back to those days and enjoying it.
After all, what better way to relax and reconnect with each other post-pandemic as the country emerges from almost 2 years of lockdown by supporting the creative industry?
What we need is hope. It's like the Renaissance came after the Black Plague, the Roaring 20s after the Spanish flu. We really need that hope to say that, hey, we can come out of this. And the arts are a really powerful tool to have camaraderie, to have people believing in positivity, and to believe in joy, you know.
So it's really not that difficult. Once you know the basic steps, you can always improvise and Ronggeng the night away.
Japan's traditional art, which can be traced back to the 8th century, was not spared from the COVID-19 impact. It's the No Theater. There were no major clusters reported, but many of those involved in this industry was hurt. I will speak to some of the major players here and also take you to the world of No. This is the National No Theater in Tokyo. No is a major form of classical Japanese dance drama that has been performed since the 14th century. Since the state of emergency was lifted in October, it has been allowed to raise its audience capacity to over 600, while precautionary steps continue to be in place against the coronavirus. Those who enter the venue must disinfect and have their temperatures taken. Once inside, they are reminded to wear their masks. With all safety measures followed, the performance begins. On this day, it was the all-star special performance of one of No's major schools called Konparu. It's based on a real story of Minamoto no Yoshitsune, a popular military commander of the 12th century, played by a child actor. He tries to flee the wrath of his half-brother Yoritomo. His group of men disguises as mountain priests, led by legendary warrior monk Benkei. Most on stage performed without masks, but the narrators clustered on the side of the stage decided to wear the traditional long masks to prevent droplets from spreading. More safety measures are taken behind the scene. Mitsuhiro Honda, veteran No actor and executive director of the No Gaku Performers Association, explains.
普段楽屋ですとね、いろんなこと大きなことで喋ったりもするわけですけど、それはやめてほしいと、張り紙を出す、マスクを必ずしてる、熱を測って楽屋行きましたあります、帰りますだったら舞台が成り立たないわけですね。さあそういう対策も立てなくちゃいけない。
Organizers need to inform audiences if a performer tested positive or in close contact with someone infected with a virus and will be replaced. In March 2020, when the pandemic started to spread nationwide, all performances were canceled. For 3 whole months during the state of emergency, nothing was staged at the National No Theatre. One No artist decided to do something different during the pandemic. It's posting videos online, something other traditional artists have not been doing much of. Tsunao Yamai began by posting one of the best-known No plays called Hagoromo, a story about a celestial maiden who loses her beautiful robe, found by a fisherman. She cannot return to heaven without it. The fisherman offers to return it after seeing her celestial dance.
能楽のコンテンツとしては実は、いわゆる動画の作品というのはあまりなくてですね、じゃあこの機に作ろうじゃないかということで、能楽の、私は自分で作ったのは本当にもう小学生でも分かるような、字幕テロップをつけまして、能の言葉ってなかなか難しいもんですから。
In 2008, No was accepted as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage, but that is not a guarantee to its survival.
日本には芸術大学、東京芸術大学、国立ありますけど、そこには能楽科ありますけども、小中高には全くないし、教育の中にも取り入れられてない、その中のそういう子どもたちに能ってものを教える努力は僕らもしてますけども、こういうコロナの中で、文部科学省も学校の行事が全滅だと。
Bringing No to homes online is a possible alternative for its exposure without people-to-people contact. For die-hard No fans, there is nothing better than watching the stage live.
舞台だと本当にその人物っていうかその登場している全部の舞台が360度目に入るので。
But fans do express concerns about the pandemic.
年齢が高齢の方が多かったのと、割と皆さんお話しなさるので、それがちょっと気にはなってましたけど。
But when seated, you hardly hear any sound from the audience. The stories No tell are 3 types: those that portray real people and real events. There are plays which feature the supernatural world and being. There is the mix of the real and supernatural world. This play is called Miwa. A middle-aged woman who's been offering fragrant and pure water to Miwa Shrine turns out to be a deity seeking salvation from Buddha. The mask depicts the character. The kimono portrays the age, gender, and social status. The kimonos are worth millions of dollars. There is only one manufacturer of No costumes in Japan. No masks have not been made since the Meiji period. I was shown up close the mask used in this performance. It dates back 650 years, treasured by the great feudal lord Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Even after No performances have resumed on stage, Mr. Yamai continues to form online collaboration to attract new fans, to conserve and bring in new possibilities. He's forming collaborations with visual artists, musicians outside the No world. It is with subsidies from the government encouraging such new attempts during the pandemic.
危うさ、戦争とか天変地に対するでちょっと後継ぐ人が減ることを一番危惧しておりますけども、国にはそういうことを考えての長い目での保護が欲しいなと思います。
No has overcome a number of crises throughout its 700 years history, perhaps due to the ordinary pleasures it brings to audiences during these difficult times. Prayers and joy of life portrayed in No, the slow, serene mood of a theater, are said to have a healing effect. Actors and supporters of No hope that the theater can help fans cope with a suppressed social environment.
When the pandemic swept across Indonesia 2 years ago, Chinese temples had to shut, in keeping with the restrictions on congregational worship. However, wayang Potehi performances or glove puppetry in some temples continued, even without an audience. But its fate isn't looking great, especially with the COVID-19 virus still a menace and the lack of enthusiasm among the younger generation in becoming puppeteers.
It's Saturday morning, and this group of young Indonesians is attending their weekly meetup at Rumah Cinta Wayang, or Rumah Cinwa, a community for wayang enthusiasts. Wayang is a traditional form of Javanese shadow puppet theater that originated on the island of Java. But here at Rumah Cinwa, members are working to preserve a less commonly known form of wayang, wayang Potehi.
Meaning glove puppetry, wayang Potehi is a popular form of puppet theater, which comes from southern Fujian province. The forefinger is used to operate the head of the puppet, while the rest of the fingers are used to operate the body.
A nearly extinct art form in Indonesia, according to experts, it entered the archipelago around the 17th century through trade and migration, and with its Chinese origins is often considered a symbol of the nation's acculturation or cultural assimilation. But it's that very same influence that has also been a source of controversy in the past. From the 1970s to the 1990s, it was forbidden to perform the art form to the public, as Indonesians of Chinese descent faced discrimination as a result of former President Suharto's assimilation policy. But it was Indonesia's fourth president, the late Abdurrahman Wahid, who lifted the ban on Chinese cultural and linguistic expression in Indonesia in 2001. And this was around the same time that Rumah Cinwa founder and University of Indonesia Culture and Javanese professor Dwi Woro Retno Mastuti began her foray into studying the art form through her research on Sino-Java traditions. Armed with materials, a PhD, and a book some 14 years later, she knew she had to do something to preserve the art form, and she established Rumah Cinwa in 2014.
Dari ceritanya tidak lagi dikenal ya, karena ceritanya lebih banyak Tiongkok klasik ya. Kemudian dari pementasannya sudah jarang, dari dalangnya menipis ya, kira-kira tinggal 3-4 lah gitu ya yang senior ya. Kemudian lagi kegemaran masyarakat untuk menonton wayang itu jauh berkurang ketimbang mungkin pada masa-masa yang lalu. Nah, itu menjadi tantangan kita, dan kemudian bagaimana mengembangkan wayang Potehi ini menjadi menarik.
With this mission in mind, Rumah Cinwa began developing the classic Chinese stories and performing well-known Javanese legends like Damar Wulan. Additionally, where Potehi music is traditionally performed with instruments like the erhu and piagu, performances by Rumah Cinwa also use traditional Indonesian instruments like the gamelan. Moving towards what Ms. Woro calls an urban version of Potehi and putting out open calls online have paid off in recruitment, as young Indonesians like 23-year-old Andika Pratama have been drawn to learn the art form in order to stay connected to his heritage.
Saya sebagai salah satu generasi muda keturunan Tionghoa ingin supaya wayang ini bisa terlestarikan, karena baik lagi sih wayang Potehi itu mengandung syarat makna, mengandung filosofi, mengandung pesan nasihat dari leluhur kita sampai sekarang secara turun-temurun, yang istilah kata adalah sebuah tontonan yang mengandung tuntunan gitu.
Despite these efforts, some stigma for those who want to learn the art form remains.
Kan kebudayaan ini luas gitu, nggak mesti kita orang Jawa harus belajar budaya Jawa doang gitu. Kita etnis Tionghoa belajarnya budaya Tionghoa doang gitu. Kita bisa meluas, bisa belajar budaya yang lain gitu, selain yang suku kita sendiri gitu, etnis kita sendiri. Dan tantangan terbesarnya juga kan tadi udah dibilang ya, etnisnya sendiri aja, sukunya sendiri aja itu masih enggan atau menolak untuk main dan bergabung gitu.
This week's training session at Rumah Cinwa involves a special guest. 62-year-old Sukar Mujiono, or Mujiono as he's called, is a master puppeteer. The East Java native has been performing since he was about 12 years old. Having grown up across a Chinese temple in the city of Surabaya, he would watch the Wayang Potehi performance every day, which is how his love affair with the art form began. With the number of puppeteers dwindling and those of Chinese heritage even less, majority of the Wayang Potehi puppeteers today are Javanese, like Mr. Mujiono, who says he's always on the lookout for anyone showing a keen interest.
Ketika kita sadar bahwasanya kok jarang peminatnya gitu ya, nah, akhirnya kita itu seperti yang saya alami dulu waktu saya kecil itu. Nah, ketika saya manggung di sebuah kelenteng di mana saja itu, ada beberapa anak yang dia datang lihat-lihat ke panggung. Nah, akhirnya saya, ayo main. Nah, itulah upaya saya untuk merekrut mereka, walaupun tidak terlalu banyak itu.
In Jakarta, for a series of performances, Mr. Mujiono is also Miss Woro's mentor for the art form, and he has stopped by Rumah Chinwa to impart his knowledge to the youth here. Rumah Chinwa members will be performing for the first time after a year, and everyone is excited to get back into the groove of things.
Tahun lalu nggak ada, tapi tahun 2020 ada. Ada 2 begitu, dan itu juga kolaborasi. Jadi free aja daripada nggak muncul ya, atau tidak berekspresi, lebih baik ya udah, toh kita nggak pergi kemana-mana.
With at least 10 performances booked so far in malls and hotels, among other places, Rumah Chinwa is looking forward to a better year and hopefully more potential talent as not only members, but as those who can carry forward Miss Woro's legacy and continue her work to preserve a part of Indonesia's history.